You are proud of being low maintenance. You wear it like quiet virtue. You don't ask for much, you don't complain, you don't demand attention, you don't make things difficult. You adapt, you tolerate, you adjust, and you call that strength. It isn't. It is self-erasure disguised as humility. You think being low maintenance makes you easy to love, easy to keep, easy to tolerate. But what it actually makes you is easy to overlook, easy to underpay, easy to underestimate, easy to replace. You have trained the world to expect nothing from you because you expect nothing from it. You think you're being mature by not asking for more. But look closely. You are afraid. Afraid that if you ask for more, you will be seen as difficult. Afraid that if you raise your standards, you will lose approval. Afraid that if you assert your needs, someone will leave. So you shrink. You soften your opinions. You minimize your desires. You downplay your ambitions. You laugh off your own disappointment. You call it going with the flow. But you are not flowing. You are dissolving. Low maintenance is often just high tolerance for neglect, high tolerance for mediocrity, high tolerance for being undervalued. You think strength is not needing much. Real strength is demanding alignment. Real strength is requiring respect. Real strength is walking away when standards are not met. But that feels dangerous to you because your identity has been built around being easy, easy friend, easy partner, easy employee, easy presence. You do not create friction, you avoid it. And in avoiding friction, you avoid growth. Friction reveals truth. Friction exposes imbalance. Friction forces negotiation. But you would rather adjust yourself than disrupt the room. So you absorb. You absorb extra work without complaint. You absorb emotional labor without recognition. You absorb unfair treatment without confrontation. You absorb disappointment without resistance. And slowly, you become smaller. Not visibly, internally. Your standards drop. Your voice quiets. Your ambition dulls. Because you are constantly communicating one message to yourself. My needs are optional. Every time you stay silent when something bothers you, you reinforce that message. Every time you say, it's fine, when it isn't, you reinforce it again. Every time you accept less than what you want, you teach yourself that less is enough. It isn't. You are not low maintenance. You are under-demanding. And under-demanding is self-betrayal. You betray your potential when you settle for environments that do not challenge you. You betray your value when you accept compensation that does not reflect your effort. You betray your emotional standards when you tolerate inconsistent treatment. You betray your ambition when you call small living peace. Peace is not the absence of demand. Peace is alignment with standards. You think asking for more makes you greedy, but not asking for more keeps you average. Look at the architects of industry. Henry Ford did not build an empire by being low maintenance. He demanded efficiency. He demanded precision. He demanded higher output. Andrew Carnegie did not create steel dominance by accepting good enough. He imposed standards that felt extreme to those around him. Thomas Edison did not say, "This will do." He demanded function. He demanded results. He demanded iteration. Demand is not arrogance. Demand is clarity. You avoid demand because you fear rejection. You fear being labeled difficult. But understand this, if raising your standards costs you access to someone or something, that access was conditional on your smallness. And anything that requires your smallness to stay is not strength. It is dependency. You are dependent on approval, dependent on being perceived as agreeable, dependent on being seen as easy. So you suppress your intensity, you suppress your expectations, you suppress your boundaries, and then you feel resentment. Quiet resentment, because you know you're giving more than you're receiving. You know you're capable of more than you're expressing, but you do not say it. You swallow it. And swallowed ambition becomes bitterness, bitterness towards others, bitterness towards yourself. You look at people who demand more and secretly judge them. You call them high maintenance. You call them dramatic. You call them excessive. But what unsettles you is not their behavior. It is their refusal to shrink. They refuse to lower the bar to make others comfortable. And you have spent your life doing exactly that, making yourself comfortable for others, adjusting your tone, adjusting your goals, adjusting your standards so that no one feels challenged by your presence. But your presence is meant to challenge, not aggressively,
But by standard, if you raise your own expectations, the room changes, and that threatens those who rely on you staying small. You have confused selflessness with self-abandonment. Selflessness is choice. Self-abandonment is habit. When you consistently put your needs last, not strategically, but automatically, you are not generous. You are conditioned. Conditioned to believe that your value comes from accommodation, from convenience, from not causing waves. But waves are necessary. Waves reshape shorelines. Waves carve stone. Without pressure, nothing changes. You have built a life with minimal pressure, minimal expectations, minimal conflict, minimal demands. And now you wonder why your growth feels minimal too. You cannot demand extraordinary outcomes while living with ordinary standards. You cannot build a powerful identity while constantly minimizing yourself. Identity is shaped by what you require. If you require little, you become little. If you require precision, growth, respect, consistency, you become aligned with those standards. Right now, you are aligned with ease. You are aligned with comfort. You are aligned with not being a problem. But becoming powerful requires being a problem for mediocrity. It requires saying no. It requires raising the bar. It requires discomfort in conversations. It requires walking away from environments that reward your silence. You avoid these because you think stability is safety. But stability built on self-suppression is fragile. One day you will reach a breaking point, and the explosion will confuse people. They will say, "You never said anything." Exactly, you never did. You never corrected misalignment early. You never enforced standards early. You waited until resentment accumulated, and then you collapsed. That is the cost of being low maintenance. You delay confrontation, and delayed confrontation becomes emotional debt. The longer you wait, the heavier it becomes. You think keeping quiet keeps peace. It keeps tension buried. Peace requires truth. Truth requires courage. Courage requires the willingness to lose comfort. And that is where you hesitate. You hesitate at the thought of losing approval, losing access, losing relationships, losing perceived stability. But what you are really losing by staying low maintenance is yourself, your edge, your hunger, your standard. You were not built to be invisible. You were not built to be endlessly adaptable. Adaptability without boundaries becomes identity erosion. You shift so often to fit others that you forget what you actually want. You ask everyone else what works for them, but you rarely ask yourself what works for you. And when you do know, you minimize it. It's not a big deal. It's fine. I don't need much. That sentence is the most dangerous one in your vocabulary. I don't need much. You need growth. You need challenge. You need respect. You need alignment. You need progress. And pretending you don't is self-deception. You say you are low maintenance, but look deeper. You are afraid to test your value. Because demanding more tests whether you will receive it. And if you do not receive it, you must make a decision to leave,
to adjust, to escalate. That requires strength. It is easier to accept less. It is easier to stay agreeable. It is easier to remain small. But small living has a cost. It limits your environment. It limits your income. It limits your relationships. It limits your self-perception. You cannot respect yourself fully while constantly suppressing your standards. Self-respect is built through enforcement, through boundaries, through consistency, through saying this is not acceptable, even when your voice shakes, especially then, because every time you enforce a standard, you send yourself a message: I matter. Every time you avoid enforcing it, you send the opposite. Over time, that message compounds, and your confidence reflects it. Low-maintenance individuals often struggle with invisible exhaustion. You are tired, not from effort, from accommodation, from constant adjustment, from constant suppression of your own. And because you never demand much externally, you start demanding less internally. You stop pushing yourself. You stop raising the bar. You stop asking more from your own life because you have practiced acceptance at every level. Acceptance without discernment becomes stagnation. There is a difference between contentment and complacency. Contentment is gratitude for what you have while still building. Complacency is surrender disguised as peace. You have drifted into complacency because it keeps everything calm. But calm is not always growth. Sometimes calm is decay. Steel left untouched rusts. Ambition left unchallenged fades. Identity left undefined dissolves. You must decide, are you low maintenance because you are strong or because you are afraid? Strong people can demand and still remain centered. Afraid people avoid demand to avoid conflict. Examine your patterns honestly. Do you undercharge for your work? Do you stay silent when disrespected? Do you accept crumbs emotionally? Do you settle for environments that do not stretch you? That is not humility. That is underestimation. And underestimating yourself is a slow betrayal. You think keeping your needs small protects you from disappointment, but it also protects you from expansion. You cannot experience high reward while tolerating low standard. You cannot build a life of depth while living on surface expectations. The shift begins when you stop asking, how can I make this easier for everyone else? And start asking, what do I require to grow? That question will feel uncomfortable. It will challenge your identity because it forces you to confront how much you have been tolerating, how much you have been shrinking, how much you have been betraying your own potential for the sake of smoothness. Smooth is not strong. Smooth is frictionless, and frictionless environments do not sharpen you. Blades are sharpened by resistance. Character is sharpened by confrontation. Standards are sharpened by enforcement. If you continue to be low maintenance, your life will remain low demand. Low demand means low growth. Low growth means low impact. And one day you will look back and realize you made yourself easy to keep, but not powerful to become. That realization is heavy because you will not be able to blame anyone else. No one forced you to shrink. You chose it. You chose safety over standard, approval over assertion, ease over expansion. But you can choose differently. You can begin raising the cost of access to you, raising the cost of your time, raising the cost of your energy, raising the cost of your silence, not through arrogance, through clarity. You decide what is acceptable. You decide what is aligned. You decide what you will no longer tolerate. And once you decide, you enforce it, without apology, without explanation beyond necessity. At first, it will feel unnatural. You will feel guilty. You will feel harsh. You will feel exposed. Stay steady. Identity shifts through repetition. Each time you enforce a boundary, your self-respect strengthens. Each time you ask for more, your standard solidifies. Each time you walk away from misalignment, your power grows. Eventually, demanding alignment will feel normal, and being low maintenance will feel weakness, because you will understand something most never do. Being easy to keep is not the goal. Hard to replace is. Hard to replace requires depth, skill, standards, presence, conviction. You cannot build those while constantly minimizing yourself. You must become high standard, not high drama, high standard, clear expectations, clear boundaries, clear direction. And once you do, something changes. You no longer chase approval. You attract alignment. You no longer beg for respect. You require it. You no longer shrink in rooms. You expand by default. Not loudly, but firmly, because you know who you are and you know what you require. The hidden cost of being low maintenance is not that people take advantage of you. It is that you train yourself to accept less opportunity, less growth, less fulfillment. And that cost compounds, silently, year after year, until you wake up and realize you built a life that never truly challenged you, a life that kept you comfortable, and comfort is a slow erosion of potential. You must decide now. Will you continue being easy, or will you become exacting? Will you continue adjusting, or will you begin defining? Will you continue under-demanding, or will you require more from your life? Because once you start requiring more, everything shifts. Some people will leave, some environments will collapse, some dynamics will strain. Let them.
Anything that depended on your smallness was never sustainable. Anything that requires you to betray yourself to maintain it is not strength. Raise the standard. Even if your voice shakes, even if your hands tremble, even if you stand alone at first, because standing alone in alignment is stronger than standing surrounded in compromise. Stop calling it low maintenance. Call it what it is, under-demanding, and stop betraying yourself quietly. The moment you demand more, you cross a threshold. You will see how much you tolerated. You will see how much you minimized, and you will not be able to return to that version without feeling the weight of it. That is the point of no return, where self-respect replaces self-erasure, where standards replace accommodation, where clarity replaces quiet resentment. You do not need to become louder. You need to become firmer. You do not need to become aggressive. You need to become defined. Defined people are not easy to manipulate. Defined people are not easy to overlook. Defined people are not low maintenance. They are high standard. And high standard lives are not built by those who ask for little. They are built by those who require alignment, require growth, require depth, require more. Stop demanding less from life, because life will give you exactly what you tolerate, and you have been tolerating far too little. Raise it, now, and never lower it again. If this exposed you, don't ignore it. Like the video, not for me, for the standard you refuse to lower. Comment the one boundary you will enforce starting today. Share this with someone who keeps shrinking themselves. And if you're done living small, subscribe and stay in the pressure.